Hi, this is Larry with Man Cave Mayhem. Today I'm out in the shop. It's a little chilly day here in Southern California, and I got my diesel heater going, trying to keep me a little warmer. So hopefully that noise in the background doesn't bother you. I've been wanting to work on this Bergman for a while. She starts, but she's a little tired when it comes to the battery, and I'll show you. Just a real, the battery's just lugging a little bit. It's still working. I've had that battery for a long time and I haven't replaced it. It's been a hot second. So I want to replace the battery, show you guys how to do that. I probably got a video already on that, but I'm going to do a series here. And I basically want to do a service on this whole bike, but I want to include it all in one video. So, and I also am going to do that service according to the service manual. So I'm going to follow it. Follow the directions that they say, so I'm not giving you guys any misinformation. So I hope that in doing this, it will clarify a lot of questions that you may have. I know in my past video when I did my oil change, I took all this off. That's not necessary, so we're not going to take that off this time, and I'll show you how to do it without taking it off. So I'm just going to kind of do an updated video. My other video worked fine, but I just wanted to do something that was all-inclusive for just a major service that maybe you would get done if you took it into Suzuki. So that's what we're going to start on. And first off is going to be the battery. If you don't know where the battery is located, it's under the seat. So some people may hunt around for it and wonder where it's at. Well, it's right under there. And of course, my shock is not in the best of shape. But yeah, it's way under here. I don't know if you guys can see that. But yeah, it's kind of dark. Let me get a light. All right, so see that cover right there? It's right under that cover. So we're going to be tearing into that cover. There's a lot of other wiring here that was installed from the previous owner that you may not have on your scooter. But we're going to pull that battery out. We're going to check it out, see what's going on with it. And we're actually going to do a battery test on it. This battery's been in there for a long time. So I don't know if maybe he put a AGM battery in there, or maybe even a lithium-ion battery. I don't know. It blows me away that this battery still works. I don't believe I've ever replaced this battery. Maybe I have, but I don't believe I have. So we're going to get started on that. And then from the battery, we're going to go ahead and we'll probably not pressure wash, well, maybe underneath the engine here, get it all cleaned up so you guys can really see what's going on under this bike when you're doing an oil change. So we'll get that all cleaned up. We're going to clean the bike up, do the oil change, do the transmission service, do the final drive service, and I'll show you guys how that all works and how that needs to be done. And we'll be using this trusty shop manual, which has a lot of marks and things in it, but I've had this thing since I bought the bike. The guy had bought this, and I just thought it was a good idea to have, and so I mean, I recommend this highly. This shows you everything you need to know about this bike. So we'll get into this, we'll dig into this, and we will get started. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Check us out at Instagram at mancave_mayhem. Also, check out my affiliate link. Go to my Amazon store. There's a lot of products that I have for sale there that help out the channel and help me make these videos. So let's get started, baby. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this cotter pin, which you can see that right there. That hole, that is the support shock for the bike, and that holds the shock up, or that holds the seat up. That's the shock that holds the seat up. This is the pin for it, so we're going to take that off. Be careful, there's a washer on it. And we're just going to move that over, and that'll allow us to bring the seat up a little bit more. Now, you can brace that seat with whatever you want. It just gives you a little bit more space. But now we're going to get something to brace the seat up. So let's do that. Okay, so there's a little pin right here that you just kind of pop out. That makes this loose. You also have this little rubber grommet that fits on top of this cover. I always kind of pull this off just to get it out of the way. I like to get that out of the way a little bit before I remove the cover, because there's a bunch of wires and stuff that go on this thing. So we're going to pull this up out of here. And there's the battery. Now this battery is an AGM, so that kind of makes me understand why it's lasted so long. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing out, and we're going to test it and see how it is. All right, now when you're removing the battery, you always want to make sure that you take the negative side off first. So we're taking the negative side off first, then we'll go after the positive side. And when you put the battery back on, you do just the opposite. You put the positive on first, and then the negative. So that's what we're doing. So we've got the negative off. Look at all these connectors. So we got a lot of accessories on this bike. Okay, now we're going to go after this positive, which is got some accessories on it as well. So we'll get that off, and we'll go from there. Now this battery should just lift right out. And there she goes. All right, so I got the battery out. This is an AGM battery, which is a absorbed glass mat battery. And these things are amazing. This, at least this battery that I've got, this Deca ETX, I thought I was having issues with the battery. Ends up that it just needed to be charged. It's holding the charge really well. I've taken this off, and I actually performed a battery test on it, and everything came out good. So it's holding the charge. I did notice that my connections down here had a little bit of a corrosion on them. So I'm going to, and I'll test this. I'll show you how I tested it. And in fact, let's get this tester set up, and I'll show you guys how I test this thing. All right, so I got the tester on, and I'm going to do just a load test on this, just a battery test. And this is an AGM flat plate. And we're going to do cold cranking amps, which are 220 right here. And we're going to hit that, and we're going to test it. I don't know if that's coming out. It's showing 100% healthy, 98% charged, good battery. So we know the battery's good on this. It just probably got a little bit neglected by myself because I haven't been riding this thing for a while. So we're just waking everything up. So we'll get this battery back in, show you how to do that. Then we're going to move on to getting the oil changed on this bad boy. All right, now that we got these all cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and put the battery back in. All right, now when we install the battery back in, we're going to do just the opposite when it comes to connecting the terminals. We're going to put the positive terminal on first. So we'll get this battery back in here, and all the positives will go on first. You probably won't have as many leads as I have. Like I said, this thing has quite a few accessories on, but we're going to get those positive leads on first. Make sure your negative leads are kind of out of the way. We don't want to create any kind of unnecessary sparks. Make sure that's secure, snug. Everything on there is tight. We'll get the negatives put on. Same process as before. Get that snug down. And then all this will go back on top. Okay, then we just throw this cover back on. These little ends right here go down into the, kind of awkward, but they go down into the front here. There. There. And that's basically how you R&R your battery. Now, like I said, you probably won't have a bunch of this wiring coming in like this, but I do, just because there's been accessories added to this bike. But that's it on wiring the battery. Now let's move on to getting this thing cleaned up. All right, now that we got this battery done, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this bike out, get it cleaned up, and then we're going to move on to the next step, which is going to be the oil change. So stick with me on this. Like I said, if you only need part of this video, you can fast forward through the stuff you're not interested in and go to the next section. But basically, we're going to get this thing cleaned up, and then we're going to do the oil change. All right, now we got her cleaned up. Now we'll take this bad boy back in and we're gonna get the oil change done. I cleaned underneath real well, or pretty good, at least to kind of make it easier for you guys to see what needs to be done. So we'll go ahead and start on that now. All right, the oil change is coming up, but I want to get to the air filter real quick. Inspect every 4,000 miles and replace every 11,000 miles. Now, I'll tell you right now, I've never replaced this air filter. It probably needs it. How many miles do I have on this bike? I've got 15,991 miles. I'll show you guys how to replace this air filter. It's real easy. You pop this down. You want to pop this cover off. It comes off very easily. You definitely don't want to open this while you're riding. Creates all kinds of problems. You can lose this cover real easy. Now there's all kinds of crap in front of this air filter, but you can see these 4 screws here. So we're going to pull these 4 screws, and you use a Japanese industrial standard screwdriver to get these off. So let's get these off and I'll show you what's behind that. Promise you, yours won't be as difficult as mine. All this wiring right here is accessories that were added by the previous owner. So really all you have is this fuse panel that you kind of have to move out of the way. And then you can see behind here, there's a seal. See this seal that comes out? You got this little seal here. And then the air filter should pull right out, just like this. And there's the air filter. Not real difficult to get to, kind of awkward. This one's a little dirty. I'm probably going to have to order a new one. It's definitely in need, so I'll blow it out for now, but have to order one. But that's how you get to the air filter on that. The air filter you want to check every 4,000 miles or 6,000 kilometers and replace it every 11,000 miles and or 1,800 kilometers. Another note to remember are these screws right here. They're captured, so you don't have to worry about them falling out, which is kind of a nice thing that Suzuki does. All right, for the oil change, first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that screw right on the step through there. And we're going to take the step through cover off, and I'll show you the step through, this screw right here, and this step through cover just kind of pops right off. All right, with your access cover off, your step through cover, whatever you want to call it, you have the oil fill. I'm going to set this light right here, see if I can get some light on this. So this is your oil fill right here, which just comes off. So that's your oil fill. This is also your coolant recovery bottle. So you can check your coolant level here and fill it as necessary. So that's also an opportunity to check that and fill that. So now that we've got access to that, now we'll go to the drain. All right, we're here on the left side of the bike. Your oil drain plug is right here, if you can see that. And that's going to be a 17 millimeter wrench that you'll need for that, or a socket. Sometimes a socket with an extension is nice to have, but I'm just going to use a wrench because that's what I've got handy. So we'll go ahead and get this loosened up. Now that I've got this loosened up, most likely this will end up in the drain pan. That's usually my luck, but we're going to give it a shot and see if we can do this without. There we go. Now we got the oil draining It's nice to have some rags handy. But we'll get this oil, we'll let this oil drain for a good long time, and then we'll move on to the next step. At this point, another good thing to do is check your drain plug. This is a magnetic drain plug that Suzuki provided, obviously, and so you check it for debris and clean it up. So we'll do that. There's no real debris on this thing, very minimal, if any. So we'll clean that up, and after this is done draining, we will put it back in, and we'll go on to the... All right, the oil we're going to be using, the oil of choice today, and I don't want to get into oil debate, but this is what I've got on the shelf, is some Castor Oil Power One. Good stuff. It's 1050 weight. Now, this calls for 1040 weight, but in the owner's manual, it says Suzuki recommends the use of 1040, but when you don't have 1040, you can use an alternative according to the following chart. That's what I'm going to do. I'm up in the high desert, and so it gets very hot during the summer. So having 1050 weight, I don't think it's going to be an issue. And so that's what we're going to run in it. Again, I don't want to get in a debate about oil, but that's what we're going to use. So once this is drained, we're going to get the oil filter off, and I'll show you how to do that. There's a little trick to the oil filter now. A lot of people think, it's 3/4 of a turn, just like a car. That is not the case on this bike, especially, I don't know about all the other bikes, but once the gasket contacts the surface, you want to make sure that you get 2 turns on that filter. And the reason being is because that filter will loosen up. I've had it happen to me in the past, and it just starts causing a leaky mess. You don't necessarily lose all your oil, but it's not worth the risk to me. So I follow what the owner's or the shop manual says, and the shop manual says to go 2 turns. That's what I do. Makes it tough to get off, but hey, it's a lot less headache in the long run. You don't want your bike blowing up. So let's, and I'll show you that in the book so you guys understand what I'm saying. In the book, to properly tighten filter, use a special tool, blah, blah, blah. After contacting the gasket, tighten 2 turns. It's awful tight, believe me, but it is necessary on this bike. All right, now that we got this sufficiently drained, still dripping a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and get this wiped down and put the drain plug back in. So we'll wipe this off real good. Try and catch it before it starts dripping again. Get this drain plug back on. Now I'll give you the torque specs on this, but I don't usually torque it. I just go by feel. If you've done any oil changes before, you kind of know how to do that, but let me get the torque specs for you. Torque specs for the drain plug is 23 Newton meters or 16.5 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, from the drain plug on the same side, let me move this pan out of the way so you can see. You're going to move up right to here, and you can see the oil filter. Now this oil filter, I just put my hand on it and it was already loose. Like I said before, they loosen up. They tend to loosen up on this bike, and I don't know why. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that filter. So you definitely want this filter to be tight. So I can't emphasize enough. 2 turns after the gasket has contacted the base of the engine. So just make sure you do that. So I've got this loose. We'll go ahead and pull it off now. All right, the filter I'll be using is some, I don't know, it's some Chinese filter, I guess. I don't know. Don't beat me up too bad in the comments. This is what I had. I ran it before and it worked pretty good, so I'm using it again. Anyhow, normally if you can, if the filter's upside down like this, I fill the filter up, but since it's sitting sideways like this, it's gonna pre-fill itself pretty much, I think, once you get the oil in. So it's not a necessary thing to fill it, and you just end up making a mess because you're trying to get it on without spilling any oil. So what I like to do is I take clean oil. Some people use the used oil, but I take clean oil, put on the gasket, and then I apply it to, I go ahead and thread it up back on. make sure the mating surface is clean and wiped down. So that's what we're going to do next. Add a little oil to this. I've got an already opened bottle, so I'm using one hand here, so I'm just going to dump a touch of oil here so I can use it to put on the O-ring. And then I just take a little one and rub on this O-ring here and get it oiled up real good. Like I said, I cannot state enough how important it is to get this thing tight, because it will loosen up on you. So next we're going to tighten this down, and then when we get it to where the gasket hits the base, we turn an additional 2 turns. So you may have to put a strap wrench on it or some type of wrench to get that tightened down really well. So I'll just get this wiped down really well. Try and get this on here so you can see what's going on. I don't know if I'm going to be able to really show you. Okay, now it's touching the gasket. Then we want to go an additional 2 turns, which is kind of crazy, I know, but it takes a little effort. So that's like 1 turn right there. So it takes a lot. Okay, so off camera, what I did is I actually put a strap wrench on that and tightened that down really well. So just so you know, you have to do that on these oil filters. I know I keep saying the same thing, but it's important because they do loosen up. So now we're going to go ahead. I've got the cap off, and we're going to get a funnel, and we're going to fill this thing up with 2.6 quarts with an oil filter. Actually, let me see. With an oil filter, it's 2.6 quarts or 2.9 liters. So we're going to get that. All right, and I usually put a little less than what it calls for and start it and check the oil level. Also, while I'm filling this, I wanted to show you guys this diagram right here. Kind of gives you an idea where all the oils go. And the transmission and the final drive are separate, as well as the engine oil they're all separate. Now there is an O-ring or a seal that goes between the transmission and engine oil case, and it does tend to infiltrate or slowly creep in to the transmission as time goes by. So you'll they kind of slip back and forth. So it's something that's important to keep an eye on this bike. It's kind of a flaw that this bike has. So you want to make sure you kind of keep an eye on your fluid levels. I do have a video on that, but just to keep an eye on that. I'm going to go ahead and get this filled, and then we'll go to the next step. Hey, don't forget to give your oil a little bit of a shake, just in case some of the additive package settles down in the bottom of this too. So make sure you do that. Shaky, shaky. All right, now with the bike on the center stand, you're going to look where the side stand's at, and this little sight hole right here will show you your sight glass. I don't know if you can see that, but my sight glass is saying I'm a little low. I'm just at the bottom line. Let's see if we can get in there. Actually get that. I don't know if you can see that or not. But yeah, so we need to add a little more. So we're going to add a little bit more. Then we'll start the bike up, let it sit for 3 minutes, and check it again. So there you go. All right, that's it for the oil change. Now we're going to move on to the transmission. The transmission is a separate compartment, like I said, so it's going to be right here. And it even shows you on this diagram the separation of these. So we're going to do the transmission next, and then we'll move on to the final drive. So all these are separate. The transmission oil is the same kind of oil as the engine oil. So you'll use the same type of oil in the transmission as you do in the engine. All right, for the transmission service, we need to get right in this area here. So unfortunately, we have to remove this plastic cover. So many plastics on this bike, it's insane. Makes it kind of ridiculous, but that's what makes it a maxi scooter, I guess. So we are going to get to changing. You got to pull these pads off to start with. So, and they just pop out. They're kind of a pain, and you're always worried about tearing them. But we get these popped up like this. They just kind of pull up, and that will expose a series of push pins and screws and nuts to get to that bottom half. So basically, we just got to get it back to here. And you can see it's still wet from when I washed it, but we're going to go ahead and pull this bottom plate off. And I'll show you how to do that so you can get to the transmission. All kinds of fun, right? Okay, I'm just going to do a quick crash course on this. This takes a 10 millimeter wrench right here to get this bolt loose. You got one bolt. There's actually two bolts here. So we'll get that loose. And there's one over here. Goes pretty quick once you've done it before, but it can be a pain in the butt at times. So we get both these loose, set those aside, and you got a couple of, there's like three, I say Phillips head, but they're not Phillips. They are Japanese industrial standard screws right here. We'll take that apart. Take these off here. And we got a couple of these push pins here. You just kind of pop the center in like that on these, and then those will slide out. I use little body tools to get these out. Those will pop right out, see? And then to reload those, you just push those up like that, and then you can put them back in and then pop them down. So that's how these come out. So you got a couple of these here. Get those out. And we're going to move to the back side here. And again, we've got two more 10 millimeter bolts holding this on. Get those off. We got one other screw right here. It needs to come out. And one more of these push pin doohickeys. And those usually, like I said, come out with the body tool. It just makes it easier to pry that out. And I've broken many of these before, so you have to kind of be careful. The edge of them like to break. And sometimes they can be a little challenging to get out. There's that. That's out. Now, on the bottom side, there's some other little push pins as well. So let's get to the bottom side. Now on the back here on the bottom side, there's a screw right here that we need to take off. This is by the back footrest. So we'll undo that. And that comes out fairly easy. There's just a bunch of things you have to take off on the plastic. So there's that. There's one right here usually, but I'm missing that one. So we're going to move on, but you can kind of see now things are getting loose, right? Things are starting to get loose. And so now we're going to move up to the front of the bike, and I'll show you what else needs to be removed. Okay, so this just kind of pops out right here. You can see how that kind of just drops out. We're going to be able to just slip that out now, and we'll be able to access the part of the transmission we need to get to. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off camera, but you'll figure it out. It's not that hard to get off now. All right, now that we got that cover off, you can kind of see what we have to work with. So down from the top of this housing, you will see right here. Now, let me see if I can get you focused here. right here. That is your oil. That's your oil fill plug right there. That's going to take an Allen wrench. We'll get to that. Then we move up from there to here. This is your oil level plug. And then from there, we move to here. And this is your oil fill plug. This is for the transmission, those 3 plugs. Now I'm doing it, a lot of people say, oh, you can just go through the oil sight plug or the oil level plug and fill it. I do it the way they say to do it in the book. So you've got your fill, your level plug, and then your drain plug down below. So that's what we're gonna do. And I'll show you the steps in the process there on how to do that. Again, this is separate from the engine. You got the engine, then you got the transmission. The transmission has all the clutches in it. This is different in the fact on a regular scooter, you would have a belt drive. This does not have a belt drive on it. It acts like a normal motorcycle. It has a motorcycle style wet clutch transmission. So we are changing the oil in the wet clutch transmission section right now. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so we're taking, I don't know if you can see that, but we're taking a number 8 Allen key, and we're going to break this loose on the transmission, and we'll drain that fluid out into the appropriate pan. So let's get that started, and then we'll go from there. Get this off without making too much mess, if we can possibly do that. I don't know if that's possible, but we're going to sure give it a try. There we go. This too also has a magnet on the drain plug, and you'll see more debris on this magnet than you will on the engine magnet, and that's to be expected because you're running a transmission with clutch plates, and so that's something that you want to look at. You're obviously going to have some fuzz on there from the transmission. Not a big deal. Now that we got that off and draining, I've loosened the fill plug, and this one's an odd looking one. It'll give you an idea what it's all about. So this is the fill plug. Kind of a weird piece there, but that's how they designed it. So we got that off now. Now we're going to go for the drain, or the oil level plug. Okay, I pull these hoses out of the way so you can kind of see what we're doing here. And this is a 14 millimeter that we're going to pop loose, and then I'll show you where we're going to go from there. All right, now that we got all 3 of them off, it's drained, we're going to go ahead. Our cleaned plug is going to go back in. So we'll put that back in, and let me get you the torque specs on that. Torque specs are as follows. Transmission oil drain plug, 21 Newton meters or 15 foot-pounds. Transmission oil filler plug, 23 Newton meters or 16.5 foot-pounds. Transmission oil level plug is 21 Newton meters or 15 foot-pounds. That's what we're going to do now. We're going to put the drain plug back on, and we'll get to filling. Now, Suzuki was even kind enough to tell you right on the engine case how much oil it needs. 360 milliliters of TM oil, transmission oil. So we're going to now, we have the oil level plug and the oil fill plug. We're going to obviously put everything in the oil fill plug. When it starts running out of the oil level plug, we know it's full, and we'll put the oil level plug back in, and then the oil fill plug back in, and then your transmission is serviced. So that's what we're going to do next, and then we'll move on to the final drive. I've got a syringe that I usually fill with the engine oil. It's more of a pain in the butt to do it this way, but I just have done it this way forever. So that's what I do, and then I just go back with this. And a lot of people will say to fill it from the bottom, and you can do that. Like I said, I just go by the book and just do it the way they say to do it. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm just filling it from the top fill plug, and it's going to take a few of these before we get it running out of that sight plug. We'll get that done, and I'll get back to you. All right, so once you've got the oil filled in the top oil fill, and you can see that it's running out of the lower oil fill plug, then you go ahead and place the lower oil fill plug back in the engine.
and you know that your transmission is now full of oil. All right, now we've got that all buttoned up. Oil changed on the transmission. Now we're going to move to the final drive. So we're going to get these out of the way. These actually go into this like that. They're drain hoses. We're going to move these out of the way. It looks like an 8mm that we're going to be using to take this cover off. All right, we're going to start taking this final drive off. We've got our 8mm wrench. We're going to break all these nuts loose. This just removes the cover. We'll get that off, and then we'll get back to you. All right, now that we got those bolts out, we can remove this to expose the final drive. And this is, just a big, basically there's a bunch of gears in here. And we want to focus on these two Allen head bolts right here. That's where we're going to, this is the fill, this is the drain. So we're going to get started on this. All right, these tend to be pretty tight. So make sure you take your fill plug off first, just to make sure you can get that off of there with no problems. So I've got some different kind of final drive oil. This was, I think it was Redline, the original stuff that I used. And so it's a different color, but you can just use regular gear oil. I'll show you the kind that we'll put in here. So now with both those off, we're getting this all drained out. Now this gear oil that I used is like I said, I forget what kind it was. It was Redline, I think, gear oil. I'm going to use regular gear oil that they call for this time, just because I don't have any of this Redline stuff. But we're going to go ahead and drain this, and then I'll show you what we need to do. And conveniently, they put here 300 milliliters, so that's how much gear oil you're going to need to put in this. But you'll be able to tell when it starts running out of the top, you know you're full. All right, so it calls for 90 weight grade, API grade GL5 gear oil, and it's 300 milliliters or 10.6 imperial ounces. So I've got some of this Valvoline 7590 gear oil, and it is GL5, it says right there. So we're going to go ahead and use that in this. And once this is fully drained, you just go ahead and put the bottom plug in, and then we'll start filling it from the top until it starts flowing out of the top, and we know we're full. One thing to note too is you don't want to get these drain plugs confused. This one is the top drain plug. It doesn't have a magnet in it. The bottom one does. You can see the magnet in the middle there. So don't get those confused when you're putting it back together. Now that we're sufficiently drained, let's get this thing filled up. So we're just gonna squeeze as much oil as we can into it until it starts flowing out. We know we're full, right? So let's get that done. Then we'll move on to the next step. Torque specs on the final drive bolts, they're going to be 24 foot-pounds or 33 Newton meters for both. So just to give you a heads up, once you get oil flowing out of the top of there, then you go ahead and secure this nut. Obviously this one's in, but you secure this top one and you're done. So then you just do everything in reverse order to get this all buttoned up. And then basically all the fluids are changed on the bike. Now we've got the fluids done. We've checked the air filter. We checked. Now there's a way to preset this. When it's on the odometer, you hold the adjust button down, and then we will hold that down and it'll start flashing, and it says oil change. And it shows the interval at 3,000, which I want to keep it at. So that's good. You keep it at that. That's how, and you can change it with the other select button. If you hit the select button, it'll change it. It'll drop it down. If you hit the adjust button, it'll bring it back up. But I keep mine at 3,000. That's usually when I change the oil on the bike. So that's all good. All right, now that we're done with everything, we're going to want to turn on the key while holding the select button down to reset your oil change light. So I'm going to have to put this down for a minute, the camera down for a minute until we get this done. Okay, I'm holding down the select button. The oil change light is flashing. Now it's stopped flashing. Now you've reset your oil change light. So remember, while holding down the select button, you turn the key on. You'll see the oil change light flashing. When it stops flashing, turn the key off, you're done. All right, folks, that's going to about do it for this video. Hopefully this helped you out.
I hope that I can save you some money, keep you from having to go to the dealerships and have all this service done. You can do this pretty easily at your own home with a few tools and just some patience. You can get this done, and you'll be back on the road with a serviced bike. There's other things that can be done on this bike, and I have some other videos that you might want to check out. Just check out my playlists. I've got a playlist full of Suzuki Bergman how-tos, and you can check those out. Also, don't forget to check out my online store at Amazon. Check out the affiliate link. That helps out the channel. And don't forget to check us out at Instagram at mancave_mayhem. And just remember, folks, I'm just a man in a cave causing mayhem. Thanks again for watching.